In 2003, McDonald's was dying, and a $1 burger saved it. The dollar menu didn't just move product, it rebuilt a company that had just posted its first quarterly loss ever, and it did it by promising one thing above all else. No matter how bad the economy gets, McDonald's will always be cheap. That promise built an empire. Today, that same McChicken costs nearly $3. A quarter pounder with cheese meal that ran $5.39 in 2014 will cost you almost $12 now. And the company that once saved itself by being the cheapest place in America to eat just posted its worst same-store sales quarter since the pandemic. This is not a story about inflation. Every restaurant chain in the country is dealing with higher beef, higher wages, higher rent. This is a story about what happens when a company spends 2 decades quietly breaking the one promise its entire business was built on, and then acts surprised when the customers it depended on most stop showing up. For most of its history, McDonald's didn't compete on food, it competed on certainty. You knew exactly what a Big Mac cost in Ohio and in Oregon, and you knew it would be cheap enough that a family on a tight budget could eat there without flinching. That reliability is what turned McDonald's into a genuine economic bellwether. Analysts didn't just track its stock, they tracked its customers, because McDonald's foot traffic was a proxy for how the bottom half of America was actually doing. When the Big Mac Index became a global shorthand for comparing currencies, that wasn't an accident. It worked because McDonald's pricing was so consistent, so predictable, that a burger could function as a unit of economic measurement in dozens of countries at once. That kind of trust takes decades to build. It takes far less time to spend. Which is exactly why the last 2 years should worry the company more than any competitor ever could. McDonald's own CEO has said the quiet part out loud. Industry-wide, traffic from low-income households has fallen by double digits. Kempczynski described it bluntly. America's economy is dividing in two, and McDonald's, the chain built to serve the half that has less, is the one feeling it first. Wealthier customers keep coming, largely unbothered by a few extra dollars on a combo meal. Everyone else is cutting back, skipping trips, or trading down to whatever is cheapest that week. For a company that spent a century building its identity around being the one place a stretched paycheck could still stretch to, that split is not a rounding error. It's the whole business model failing in slow motion. The company's answer was value. Not once, but over and over the $5 meal deal, then the McValue platform, then a $3 and under menu, then a buy one add one for a dollar offer stacked on top of all of it. On paper, this looks like a return to the dollar menu playbook. In practice, it's become a mess. By the second quarter of 2026, McDonald's own executives admitted the strategy had backfired. So many overlapping deals confused customers and slowed down kitchens that the company's own leadership said, in their words, that they simply didn't execute. Sales growth slowed to less than 1% in what should have been the value era's proving ground. Customers who came in chasing one discount found themselves standing behind someone redeeming another, at a register staffed by crews already stretched thin, trying to keep up with a menu that had quietly tripled in complexity since the drive-thru first became the center of the business. Here's the uncomfortable math underneath all of it. McDonald's spent a decade raising prices faster than almost any major chain in America, a full 100% increase across its menu since 2014, nearly double the rate of inflation over that period. McChicken alone, $1 in 2014, nearly tripled. Then the company tried to win back the very customers those price hikes pushed away using discounts. But you cannot discount your way out of a decade of price hikes without someone else absorbing the cost. And that someone is the franchisee. Walk into almost any McDonald's in the country, and the person who owns it isn't McDonald's Corporation. It's an independent operator who paid up to $2.5 million for the right to run that single restaurant, who owes the company a royalty on every dollar of sales regardless of profit, and who has just watched that royalty rate climb to 5% on new locations, up from 4%. When corporate headquarters decides to subsidize a value menu to win back traffic, it's the franchisee absorbing the real cost of a $5 meal deal at the register, not the parent company collecting its royalty check regardless. Kempczynski has admitted franchisee cash flow is down roughly 10% from its highs, and in states like California, where fast food minimum wages sit near $20 an hour, it's worse still. Add rising beef costs, tighter labor markets, and a corporate mandate to keep discounting, and you get an operator squeezed from every direction at once, expected to keep smiling at the register while the math quietly stops working behind the counter. This is the exact structural bind that hollowed out the Big Four accounting firms and gutted management consulting, a business model where headquarters gets the brand value and the operator absorbs the risk until the operator simply can't anymore. And while McDonald's was managing this internal squeeze, it was also managing a public health crisis. In the fall of 2024, contaminated onions on quarter pounders triggered an E. coli outbreak across 14 states. At least 104 people got sick. 34 were hospitalized, one person died. McDonald's pulled the product, traced the contamination back to a single supplier's slivered onions, spent $100 million trying to rebuild trust through marketing, and told investors not to expect a full recovery until well into the following year. For a brand whose entire value proposition is dependable, unglamorous consistency, the same fries, the same burger, anywhere in the country, an outbreak like that isn't just a bad quarter. It's a direct hit on the one thing McDonald's was supposed to guarantee. At the exact moment its most price-sensitive customers were already looking for a reason to eat somewhere else. Meanwhile, the competitive ground has shifted underneath it. Chick-fil-A has spent a decade building the reputation McDonald's used to own. Reliable, friendly, worth the price, and now sits atop customer satisfaction rankings for the 11th year running, even as its own prices have climbed. Chipotle took the opposite approach entirely. It refuses to franchise at all, keeps every restaurant company owned, and runs margins north of 25% because there's no franchisee squeezed in the middle absorbing the difference between corporate strategy and store-level reality. McDonald's is trying to answer both threats with technology, betting heavily on artificial intelligence to smooth out the very bottlenecks its own value menus created: AI-assisted drive-through ordering, predictive kitchen equipment, order accuracy scanning rolled out across thousands of restaurants. It might help, but it treats the symptom, not the disease. Smaller, faster-growing chains are proving that the old McDonald's model, thousands of small independent operators, all bound by rigid corporate mandates, all squeezed from above, isn't the only way to run a restaurant empire anymore. It might not even be the best way. There's a version of this story where McDonald's simply does what it did in 2003. Strip the business back down to the one promise that built it, and let everything else go. That's not what's happening. Instead of one clear $5 meal, customers now navigate a rotating menu of overlapping offers that changes by the month, each one requiring the app, each one with its own fine print. The complexity itself has become a cost paid in slower service, confused customers, and burned-out crews trying to ring up 3 different promotions at once during a lunch rush. Howard Schultz once shut down every Starbucks in the country for a single afternoon just to remind his own staff what the brand was supposed to feel like. McDonald's has tried nothing that dramatic. It has instead layered fix on top of fix, hoping volume alone will cover for a strategy nobody inside. The company seems fully able to explain to investors, let alone to the customers standing at the counter. None of this means McDonald's is disappearing. It still serves roughly 90% of the American population every year. It still generates enough scale that even a bad quarter looks enormous next to almost anyone else in the industry, and its stock still trades like a company built to last another century. But scale was never really the question. The question was whether a company that grew by promising cheap, dependable food could survive breaking that promise for a decade and then patch it back together with discount menus subsidized by the people who can least afford to subsidize them. The franchisees standing in 30,000 kitchens across the country, watching corporate headquarters call it a value strategy while their own margins quietly disappear. The dollar menu didn't save McDonald's because it was clever marketing. It saved McDonald's because it was true, a genuine sustainable promise. The company could keep to the people who needed it most. What's happening now looks similar on a press release. It isn't the same underneath, and the franchisees holding the actual restaurants, the ones absorbing 5% royalties and shrinking margins so headquarters can announce another value platform, are the ones who will find out first whether this version of the promise is real or just another slide in the deck.